Hello YouTube, I am back again, and today we will be covering London, the second poem in the Power and Conflict anthology written by William Blake. So we are going to go a little bit quicker today because no one wants to sit through 20 minutes of me talking about a poem. So I've already done the highlighting for you all, written the quotes, so let's just get started. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow. Interesting. Let's pick up on the repetition of chartered. Chartered. Repeated. Okay, so Blake chooses to repeat the word chartered here, which is an interesting choice. Because what if this could be used to represent how absolutely everything that the speaker is seeing has been claimed? Because the word chartered directly means to claim. You know, to own something. A chartered house is a house that someone does own. But the juxtaposition here between chartered and Thames, let's write juxtaposition, is quite interesting because the Thames is obviously a river. Let's write that too. While chartered is to own. And you can't literally own a river. It's not like you built it. It was already there. It's part of nature. So how is someone owning this? Well, perhaps Blake here is trying to highlight how the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, if you will, have taken it upon themselves to decide that everything belongs to them, even the smallest parts of life, like a river. So here, he's clearly showing us that the normal people in London have no strength or power to fight back against these people, not even being able to enjoy a natural feature that really should just be there for everyone. It was there before London itself was. But they don't have to know that. Okay, let's keep going. Look at that. We are keeping good time. Next quote. In every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. So obviously, more repetition here. The entire line is a little bit longer, and he repeats in every even more. So obviously that is repetition. Once again, forgive my poor handwriting. It's not brilliant. And speaking on the topic of that, in my last video on Ozymandias, there was two quick little things I wanted to correct from myself. I think I referred to assonance in that video, and instead of assonance, it was sibilance, which means the same thing. It's the repeated S sound. And also the use of caesura and enjambment. Enjambment is when no punctuation is used to cut to the next line, while caesura is when a piece of punctuation is used midway through a line to cut it up. So I'll just clarify that for everyone. That is my bad. I'm willing to accept that. I'm a good, mature person. Anyways, next. In every, so repetition of that clearly shows emphasis on just how much these bad things are happening in. I'll read out the entire line itself in my little notes here. Look at that, all my big words. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. It's a lot of every, and every, and every, and every, and every. Okay, so why did Blake do this? He isn't just repeating himself because he's slowly going mad. Well, he might have been. I wasn't around to hear him or help him write this poem. I wouldn't anyway. It's not my sort of thing. Ozymandias is a little bit better in my opinion. So, in every and every and every. He's repeating how bad things are here in London, you know, referencing the marks of weakness, marks of woe that are mentioned earlier in the poem. Won't be analysing that today, but if you want a very quick whistle stop of that, that could just clearly show how everyone is physically weak because they are starving or not being paid enough, so they're out on the streets in poverty. There you go. There's a little bit more you could say. It's hyperbole and the like, but that's fine. So, we'll continue with this line. The mind-forged manacles. Okay, what's a manacle? Good question. A manacle is like a handcuff. Let's write that down. So if I have manacles on my wrists, it means that I cannot move my wrists around. So the fact that these manacles, these restraints, are mind-forged can connote how the people aren't truly being physically controlled by the government, only in the mind. Only mentally, in their brains, which are very malnourished and under-nutritionalized. I made that word up. Do not use that in your exam. So clearly, yeah, they are struggling, yet the rich people do not care. Which links perfectly to the next quote. And the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. Okay, look at the time. It's only been 5 minutes and we're halfway. This is incredible. This is what you guys are here for. This better get more views or I'll be really upset. So, the hapless soldier. Hapless just means miserable and uninterested. You know, someone who's hapless is someone who sighs, someone who just doesn't really care. They're doing it. You know, like most people sat there in their classrooms, you could say, the hapless student's sigh runs in ink down pieces of paper. That would make it more relatable, you know. School isn't the most interesting place in the world. Yet we're here and we're getting it done. Because after GCSEs, I'm sure it'll get better. I like to think so. I'm still awaiting what is going to happen to me. I could fail everything. We don't know yet. I don't think I will, but there's always the possibility. So, sigh can go back to hapless. You know, it's bored, it's uncaring, it's sick of it all, really. But this sigh runs in blood down palace walls. It's not just the soldier is sighing at the palace or just sighing in general. He's sighing in blood. Blood connotes danger and death. But palace is happy and rich and strong and kingship and leadership. And then walls. Walls connote stopping things and making a barrier. So perhaps these walls that run around the palace that have blood running down them can connote that uncaring attitude and how all these people in charge, these members of parliament and rich people, even the soldiers that fight to defend their country, are just stains on the walls that surround them. They don't even see them, they just see what's left of them. Almost like numbers of how many people have died in war, while they just stay sat in their rich people palaces. Unbelievable. You know, this links quite well to Animal Farm, if anyone else is studying that. I might go through that if I have the time, but obviously my English literature exam is in like 2 weeks, something like that. It's like the Monday after next. And of course we all take it at the same time, so we're all running on the clock a little bit, and it's pretty scary. Tell you what though, that is paper 1. So a quick reminder then, that'll be Christmas Carol and Macbeth, if you are some people. Other people have many. I know some people do Inspectacles or other things. Inspectacles I do for GCSE drama. Not a fan. I will never be studying that again. I wish Inspectacle never showed up. I don't care about the Burling family. They're all a massive pile of gimps. Anyway, how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's ear. Now, a harlot is a young woman, sometimes can be referred to being prostitution or women of the night, we might call them. So these youthful harlots can connote child in work, you know, whether they are in prostitution or not. This is still children being forced to work, which reference is the chimney sweeper's cry that is shown earlier in the poem. So there's this recurring problem of children having to work despite being of a very young age and living in this chartered piece of London. You know. So their curse though is interesting. Children cursing connotes maturity and being old, because you know children don't swear. And this can connote something that comes from A Christmas Carol that we call the Lost Generation. Now this will slide over to the context section. The Lost Generation, which is an interesting little thing because not a lot of people know what this is. Well, the Lost Generation is the word that comes with imagining the chimney sweepers and all these young people that were being forced to work from a very young age during industrial Britain, which is when this was written, in the industrial period. So, you know, the Industrial Revolution. Do that in history, Crime and Punishment. You know, it's a little bit of a tricky topic. It's very, very dull, but That's part of our history. So, well, we'll stay on the topic of context real quick, and we'll look at Blake himself while we're here. So, during his life, from 1757 to 1827, Blake himself was a painter, a poet, and a printmaker. We'll just say painter, because we don't have time for all that. And he was very influential at the time. A lot of people liked this guy for his paintings and his poems. He was very interesting. Just like Percy Shelley from Ozymandias. These were two pretty famous people. And they would have lived at the same time, which is quite cool. So they could have been best bros, and we'll never know. They do write very similar. And on the topic of writing similar, they are both romantic poets. Now, a lot of people might have seen my first video before this where I explained what a romantic poet was. I'll be super quick about it this time. It is not cute, lovey-dovey, kissy-wissy Romeo and Juliet romance. Romantic poets is nature, and it is time. And the power of both, and how they are stronger than humanity. So we'll do like a little pyramid here. You know, humanity is down there, nature and time at the top, because they are better, they are stronger than us, we are not very important. Sorry about the pause, folks, just had to deal with a few more things. Had a quick snack break while I was at it as well. But let's continue. So where were we? We're just looking at the context and how romantic poets believe nature and time are stronger than humanity, which is exactly how Blake thought. Now, more on Blake himself. He was very highly in support of the French Revolution. And why, you ask? It was simply because he was happy that normal people were taking power for once and out competing and destroying the rich people that controlled everything, that controlled London and Paris, and they took over and they made it how they wanted it to be. And he thought this was great, and he thought we needed to do this. And he wrote about this sort of thing. One of these things he wrote was another anthology called Songs of Innocence and Experience. So we will write that down. Nice. So this anthology that Blake wrote himself was about two different things. First one, the first half, Songs of Innocence. This innocence section was all about how life was happy and peaceful and joyful and innocent, while experience was the dark, miserable side, which has things like London in it. You know, a youthful harlot's curse wouldn't show up in innocence, but I don't know. The giggling baby's squeal would be. You know, it's a nice, happy thing. Of course, obviously, industrial London was not very nice. It was not innocent. It was miserable. It was filled with diseases and STIs and people cheating on their wives and things. And you know, it was a horrible place to live. Everyone was broke. Everyone was starving to death. And he wanted everyone to know this, which is great because it did suck. I can agree. If I lived there, I would not be very happy. So then, let's look a little bit more at this quote, and then we'll move on to our final bit, which will always be structure, which is always, arguably, probably one of the better bits. I always enjoy my structure. Part of the structure you should follow in your essay. I'll just write that down real quick. Make sure my camera is centered. There we go. Well, not camera, but mobile phone. Smile. This is how I learnt. S is structure. M is meaning. I is imagery. L is language. E is effect. If you do a paragraph on each of those, you will get a good mark. Structure is number one. It's very important. It shows up very quickly in the mark scheme. If they're flicking through their mark scheme, the examiner that is, and they see, oh, he started with structure. That's good. He must know what he's doing because it's the first thing they mark. It's perfect. It lines up well. Makes their jobs easier. So you might get some, biased marks, but really that isn't a thing. But, it might be. I'm not an examiner. But if somebody made my life a lot easier, I would probably want to make theirs a little bit easier. It's fair. Anyway, back to structure, because this video's getting a bit long. Well, no, the quote. Okay. Last, the newborn infant. That is an innocent figure. Peaceful, gentle, but tear. They are crying. These harlots' curses are making these babies cry. that's making everyone else more miserable. It's this endless cycle of making someone cry and making someone else cry, stealing things and hurting people and getting into fights. All of this, all happening in the chartered streets of industrial London. Unbelievable. Now, structure. Let's have a look at our structure, super duper quick. Rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. This, I'll give you a quick little example here. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear. Fear and hear, man and ban. It's A, B, A, B. A would be man, ban, and then B would be fear, hear. And there's also a rhythm to it, just like Ozymandias. This one is another iambic. This one is tetrameter. And this is 8. Ooh, I'm choking on my snacks. This is 8 syllables per line. So tetra, we've got 8. If I remember correctly, tetra means kind of like, 8. So if that helps you remember, it does. Quad is 4. Quadruped, quadrupedal means 4. Quad bikes 4. Tetra is 8. So do remember that, it does help. It's also quite a repetitive poem with its rhythm. This rhythm never really breaks, like in Ozymandias, where you've got sections of iambic pentameter and sections without. Here it's just usually 8 syllables. I wander through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow. See, it makes sense. Good, positive flow, as you would say. And with that, I do believe we have covered the main important sections for London by William Blake. So, and with that, well done everybody for following along. I know this is very boring. I do recommend watching these while you do something else with your time, maybe walk or go to the gym. Maybe not the gym. This is if someone asks what you're listening to and you show them this, they will think you've gone mad and probably report you somewhere, but it's worth it for a grade 9 and getting them gains in. So, thank you for watching / listening / following along. Either works. I will hopefully get paid millions for my quadrillions of views in the future. But for now, every little bit counts. So thank you all and best of luck.